Picture a bustling gas station on the outskirts of town where fuel and fresh coffee scents mingle. A tall, lanky teenager catches your eye. He's not seeking attention, but something about him seems familiar. As you watch, a woman struggles with groceries, her face etched with worry. The boy hesitates, then moves to help. In that moment, you realize who he is. Barron Trump, son of one of America's most controversial figures, is about to challenge everything you thought you knew about privilege and compassion. This unlikely hero's story is set to take you on an emotional roller coaster you never saw coming. The gas station stood like a lonely island in the sea of rain, its fluorescent lights casting a hazy glow through the downpour. The rhythmic patter of raindrops on metal and concrete created a melancholy symphony, broken only by the occasional swoosh of passing cars on the nearby highway. It was in this dreary setting that Sarah's old sedan sputtered to a stop at pump number 3. Sarah, a single mother of 2, sat for a moment in her car, gathering her courage. The dashboard clock blinked 9:47 p.m., a stark reminder of the long day behind her. With a deep breath, she stepped out into the rain, her thin jacket offering little protection against the chill. As she approached the pump, Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wallet. The familiar weight of it felt lighter than usual, a tangible reminder of her financial struggles. She flipped it open, her eyes scanning the contents with a mixture of hope and dread. The numbers on the pump seemed to mock her, climbing higher with each passing second. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the cruel math of her situation. She was $10 short of filling her tank. She tried to swipe her card again, hoping for a miracle. The machine beeped angrily in response, a harsh sound that cut through the steady drone of the rain. Her shoulders slumped as the reality of her predicament set in. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears, mirroring the raindrops that streamed down her face. She thought about her kids waiting at home, unaware of the constant juggling act their mother performed to keep their world stable. The image of her nearly empty fridge flashed through her mind, followed by the stack of unpaid bills. The electric company's final notice lay on top, its red lettering a glaring reminder of the precarious tightrope she walked. Sarah leaned against her car, trying to stifle a sob that threatened to escape. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as if the whole world could see her struggle, illuminated under the harsh gas station lights. In that moment, Sarah's mind raced through a series of desperate calculations. Could she make it home on what little gas she had? Would her neighbor be willing to lend her a few dollars until payday? The options seemed to shrink with each passing second, leaving her feeling more trapped than ever. As the rain pelted down, Sarah felt more alone than ever. The gas station, once a mundane stop in her daily routine, now felt like a crucible, testing her resolve and laying bare her vulnerabilities. She closed her eyes, willing the world to disappear for just a moment, unaware that her night was about to take an unexpected turn. The low rumble of an approaching vehicle cut through the steady patter of rain, drawing Sarah's attention. A sleek, black SUV rolled into the gas station, its pristine condition a stark contrast to Sarah's weathered sedan. As the SUV stopped, a tall figure emerged, hunching against the downpour. The newcomer strode towards the pump with purpose. A gust of wind pushed back his hood, revealing a face that made Sarah's breath catch. She blinked rapidly, certain her mind was playing tricks. It couldn't be who she thought. Not here, in this unremarkable gas station. But as the young man turned, their eyes meeting across the rain-slicked concrete, There was no denying it. Baron Trump stood mere feet away. Sarah's thoughts raced. What was he doing here? How could someone like him understand her struggles? The world seemed to pause as their gazes locked. Baron's expression shifted, noticing Sarah's distress. He hesitated, visibly torn between privacy and approaching this stranger in need. Something in Sarah's demeanor made up his mind. With a deep breath, he stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, his voice softer than expected. "Is everything all right?" Sarah stammered. I'm fine." Her instinct to put on a brave face kicking in, but a traitorous tear betrayed her. Baron's brow furrowed with concern. "Please, I'd like to help if I can. Sometimes talking to a stranger can be easier." His sincerity caught Sarah off guard. This compassionate young man was far from the aloof figure she'd imagined. As Sarah wrestled with her pride and desperate need, Barron waited patiently. He didn't push, simply offering a presence both comforting and surreal. The gas station, once a symbol of Sarah's struggles, became an unlikely stage for an encounter that defied expectations. Two vastly different worlds collided. Sarah, a single mother at her breaking point, and Baron Trump, born into privilege, but seeking to understand the world beyond. As seconds ticked by, the air between them charged with possibility. Would Sarah open up? Could Baron comprehend her struggles? And how might this chance encounter change both their lives? Baron's voice was gentle, barely audible above the patter of rain. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" he asked, his eyes filled with genuine concern. Sarah blinked, startled by the unexpected interaction. Her mind struggled to reconcile the young man before her with the public figure she'd seen in the media. I'm fine," she stammered, hastily wiping away her tears. Baron's gaze drifted to the gas pump, then back to Sarah's face. He noticed the deep lines of worry etched around her eyes, the way her shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Without a word, he reached for his wallet. "Please, let me help," he said softly, his voice steady and reassuring. Sarah's pride flared, a brief spark of resistance in the face of her overwhelming desperation. She opened her mouth to refuse, but Barron held up a hand, his expression sincere and disarming. "I insist," he said, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "It's not much, but maybe it can make your night a little easier." Before Sarah could protest further, Barron had already swiped his card. The pump whirred to life, and Sarah watched in stunned silence as the numbers climbed. This simple act felt monumental to her. It was more than just filling a gas tank. It was a lifeline thrown when she'd been drowning. As the pump clicked off, Sarah found herself at a loss for words. The silence stretched between them, filled with the soft hiss of rain and distant thunder. Barron cleared his throat, seeming almost embarrassed by her speechless gratitude. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking a lot lately about privilege and responsibility, about how a small gesture can mean so much more to someone else than it does to you." Sarah nodded, her voice hoarse with emotion when she finally spoke. "You have no idea how much this means. I was at my breaking point." Barron's eyes softened with understanding. He pulled out a small notepad and scribbled something down. "Listen," he said, tearing out the page and holding it out to her. "I know I can't solve everything, but I have some connections that might be able to help. This is the number of a job placement agency that works with single parents. They might be able to point you towards some opportunities." Sarah took the paper with trembling fingers, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, clutching the note as if it were a precious gem. Barron shrugged, a hint of shyness creeping into his demeanor. "Just pay it forward when you can, okay? That's all I ask." As Sarah nodded, still overwhelmed, they became aware of a small crowd that had gathered near the convenience store. Phones were out, capturing this unexpected moment of kindness. Barron noticed Sarah's discomfort at the attention and stepped closer, creating a buffer between her and the onlookers. "Don't worry about them," he said quietly. "Focus on taking care of yourself and your kids. That's what matters." With a final nod and a gentle smile, Barron turned to leave. But before he could take more than a few steps, Sarah found her voice. "Wait," she called out, causing him to pause and look back. "Thank you. Not just for the gas, but for seeing me, for caring." Sarah's mind raced as she gazed at the young man before her. This Barron Trump was so different from the fleeting glimpses she'd seen on television or magazine covers. A gentleness in his eyes and quiet strength in his posture caught her off guard, leaving her searching his face to reconcile the media's portrayal with this compassionate stranger. I don't know what to say," Sarah stuttered, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't have to do this. Why would you?" Barron shifted uncomfortably, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. He glanced down at his shoes before meeting Sarah's gaze again. "It's nothing really," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the rain. Anyone would have done the same. But as he spoke, Barron felt a twinge of doubt. He thought of his privileged upbringing, wondering if he truly understood the weight of her struggles. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. Something about Barron's presence made her want to open up. I don't usually." She hesitated, then let out a small laugh. "I'm not in the habit of pouring my heart out to strangers at gas stations. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is easier sometimes." As the rain fell around them, Sarah began to share her story. She spoke of late nights, working double shifts, the constant juggling act between bills and groceries. The words tumbled out, halting at first, then flowing more freely. Barron listened intently, his expression softening with genuine concern. He asked questions that showed he was truly engaged, struggling to grasp the reality of Sarah's daily life. There was no judgment in his gaze, just a deep, empathetic understanding that made Sarah feel truly seen. "It's not just about the money," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's the constant worry, you know. The fear that one small setback could bring everything crashing down. Sometimes I feel like I'm hanging on by a thread." Barron nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. "That kind of pressure, it must be overwhelming," he said softly. "I can't imagine how strong you have to be to face that every day." His words struck a chord deep within Sarah. She'd grown so used to feeling weak, to seeing herself as a failure. To have someone recognize her strength was unexpectedly powerful. As they talked, the labels that had initially defined them began to fade away. In their place emerged a simple, profound truth. They were just two human beings, each carrying their own burdens, each capable of extraordinary kindness. Barron leaned against the pump, his eyes distant as he began to speak. The steady patter of rain on the gas station's metal awning created a cocoon of privacy around them. Sarah found herself leaning in, drawn by the unexpected vulnerability in the young man's voice. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a fishbowl," Barron said softly. Every move I make, every word I say, it's all scrutinized. The whole world is waiting for me to make a mistake. Sarah listened, surprised to find herself empathizing with this young man from such a different world. She had always imagined the life of a Trump to be one of endless privilege. But as Barron spoke, she began to see the weight of expectation that rested on his shoulders. There are days when I just want to be invisible, he continued, running a hand through his rain-dampened hair. To walk down the street without someone recognizing me, without feeling like I'm carrying my family's legacy on my back. As he spoke, Sarah saw not the son of a controversial figure, but a young man grappling with his place in the world. She thought of her own children, of the pressures they faced in school and among their peers. Different, yes, but the core of it, the need to belong, was achingly familiar. Barron's voice grew stronger as he shared a memory. Last year, I volunteered at a youth center in New York. No one knew who I was. For a few hours each week, I was just Barron, helping kids with homework and playing basketball. His eyes lit up as he described those afternoons. Sarah found herself smiling, picturing the scene. It was a side of Barron Trump she never would have imagined existed. But then someone recognized me. Barron continued, his expression clouding. Words spread, and suddenly everything changed. I couldn't just be Barron anymore. The pain in his voice was palpable, and Sarah felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. She thought of her own struggles with judgment and misunderstanding, the gulf between their experiences narrowing. Sometimes I feel so helpless, Barron admitted, his gaze fixed on the rain-slicked pavement. I have all these resources, but I don't always know how to use them to make a real difference. Sarah nodded, understanding all too well the feeling of helplessness in the face of overwhelming circumstances. But you're here now, she said softly. You're making a difference, even if it's just for one person. Barron's vulnerability touched Sarah deeply. She saw in him not the polished image presented by the media, but a young man struggling to find his own path, to make his own mark on the world. You know, Barron said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Sometimes I dream about just disappearing, starting over somewhere where no one knows my name. Sarah's heart ached at the loneliness in his words. She thought of her own children, of the dreams and fears they shared with her. In that moment, the differences between them seemed to fade away. I guess what I'm trying to say, Barron continued, meeting Sarah's gaze, is that I understand feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you're not enough. It might look different on the outside, but inside, we're all just trying to figure it out. As Sarah and Barron continued their conversation, a subtle shift in the atmosphere went unnoticed. The soft patter of rain masked the growing whispers of curious onlookers. What had begun as a private moment was silently transforming into something larger. A small crowd gathered near the convenience store, drawn by the unlikely scene. In the soft glow of the gas station lights, a powerful force was gathering strength just beyond Sarah and Barron's view. The onlookers watched as invisible barriers seemed to dissolve before their eyes. People began to approach. A middle-aged man in a worn jacket stepped forward. I lost my job last month, he admitted quietly. Hearing you both talk, it's like you're speaking right to me. His courage sparked a chain reaction. A young woman in scrubs shared her struggles, balancing work and caring for her parents. An older gentleman spoke of his loneliness since losing his wife. The gas station transformed into an unlikely town square. Stories of hardship and hope flowed freely, each tale met with understanding and support. The air hummed with connection. Barron, initially tense, found himself moved by the stories. His discomfort melted away as he listened intently. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen for his humanity. "I never realized," Barron said softly, "how much we all carry inside, how much we need each other." Sarah watched in amazement as her moment of despair turned into a catalyst for connection. The weight of her struggles now seemed shared among this impromptu community. Tears of gratitude and hope welled in her eyes. As the night wore on, the gas station became a beacon of human connection. The glow of the pumps illuminated faces etched with both weariness and newfound warmth. Strangers exchanged contact information, creating a web of support. A local restaurant owner arrived with coffee and pastries. The simple act of sharing food cemented the bonds forming between unlikely friends. Laughter mingled with occasional sniffles as stories continued. Barron found unexpected freedom in this diverse group. Here, he wasn't defined by his last name or family legacy. He was simply a young man offering and receiving kindness. As the gathering dispersed in the early hours, there was a sense that something fundamental had shifted. People left with lighter steps and brighter eyes, carrying a renewed faith in the power of human connection. As the last echoes of conversation faded, Sarah turned to Barron, her eyes glistening with gratitude and hope. The weight on her shoulders seemed lifted, if only for a moment. Barron stood taller, a sense of purpose evident. "I can't thank you enough," Sarah said softly, "for the gas and for this." She gestured to the dispersing crowd. Barron nodded, smiling. "I think I needed this as much as anyone." They exchanged contact information, knowing this night had altered their paths. Sarah's fingers trembled as she input Barron's number, a tangible link to the evening. As Sarah started her car, the engine's hum seemed different, a promise of what lay ahead. She took a deep breath, inhaling possibility. With a final wave, she drove towards a hopeful future. Barron watched her taillights disappear, emotions playing across his face. He turned back to his SUV, catching his security detail's curious looks. For once, he didn't mind their watchful eyes. Settling into his seat, Barron made a silent vow. This wouldn't be a one-time act of kindness. He typed a message to his father. "Dad, I need to talk to you about making a real difference in people's lives." As dawn broke, Barron's mind raced with ideas. He thought of the youth center where he'd volunteered, of Marco and other kids needing support. Could he create a network of such centers nationwide? Places for connection, learning, and mutual support? He began drafting emails to nonprofits and community leaders. Exhaustion faded beneath excitement and purpose. Barron felt he was stepping into a role of his own making. For Sarah, the drive home brimmed with determination. Challenges now felt surmountable. She envisioned herself in a new role, providing for her children without constant fear. Pulling into her driveway, Sarah noticed her neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. Usually, she'd hurry inside, but today she waved, receiving a warm smile. It felt like rebuilding community connections. Inside, her children slept peacefully. Looking at their faces, Sarah felt determined. She would show them that kindness and perseverance could change lives, their own and others. As the sun rose, Sarah and Barron's gas station encounter sparked change in the community. Their kindness inspired people to reflect on compassion. Strangers exchanged knowing glances, acknowledging potential connections. In coffee shops and online, discussions about helping others flourished. Weeks later, Sarah started a neighborhood support group for single parents. Barron began planning youth centers nationwide. Their story challenged assumptions about privilege and empathy, reminding everyone that hope often arrives unexpectedly. This tale of connection became a powerful testament to our shared humanity, transcending perceived differences and inspiring acts of kindness throughout the community.